everything you wanted to ask about low power FM, applicant support question and answer session. That's coming up next Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Following that, in the same week, we'll have free software for community radio, and that's going to happen Wednesday, September 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll also have a training the following Tuesday. That's October 1st. That's actually at 1 p.m. And that one is called Locally Sourced News: How to Build a Volunteer News Department. And you can check out our website, prometheusradio.org/webinars, to see the other upcoming trainings. And also you can check out our training archives, prometheusradio.org/archives, and that will have this recording, or this webinar, recorded, as well as all the ones that have been happening in the last month or so that we're doing towards applicant support leading up to the window, and also older trainings as well that you can access there. I just want to give everyone a little background about Prometheus. I know that there's some folks on the line I recognize from doing a few of these now, but we like to just do a little intro about Prometheus and about community radio in general. Prometheus is a not-for-profit based in Philadelphia, and we've been around for about 15 years doing work to build participatory radio as a voice for community expression and a tool for social justice organizing. We exist to counter corporate consolidation and control of the media. Over time, the media has become less and less accessible to communities as corporations have acquired a bigger share of the media landscape. It is not in the interest of this small handful of corporations to effectively represent, celebrate, and affirm the varied communities that we are all a part of. We need our own media outlets to tell our visions of history, to make our own news that combats stereotypes and speaks truth to power, and to create positive changes in our own communities. For the past 13 years, Prometheus has helped hundreds of communities start their own radio stations. Today, there's over 800 low-power FM stations on the air, and this fall, many new channels are becoming available across the nation. This is an opportunity for communities to own their own media infrastructure through starting low-power community radio stations. By community radio, we mean transformative for both listeners and media makers, participatory, as in democratically organized with community involvement in the production of content, and affordable and accessible stations with multimedia capabilities that are locally rooted. We here at Prometheus are on the ground in communities across the country, working with grassroots groups just like the ones many of you joining us tonight are a part of. We want to use the media to create a more democratic society, and these trainings are part of our strategy to promote participatory radio as a part of building that society. Please consider supporting Prometheus, where your financial support today means a better media future. And you can visit our website to support our work, prometheusradio.org/donate. Just want to go over some of the goals for the webinar tonight. Of course, we're building a broadcast and production studio. We want to learn about basic studio setup, and we want to review standard audio and transmission equipment. Of course, before you put your low-power FM station on the air, you'll have to make a lot of decisions related to equipment, and this training is intended to help you figure out what components you need for a station and what features to look for in those components. Tonight we have two guest speakers with us. We have Will Floyd, who's a musician and audio recording enthusiast who has served in several roles at WOBC, the student-run radio station in Oberlin, Ohio. And that includes jobs as engineer and general manager. Will currently works with us here at Prometheus as a technical and training organizer, performing engineering studies and educating about the mechanics of community radio. We also have joining us tonight Donna Dibianco, who's based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Donna's 20 years of experience starting and running non-commercial and community radio stations brings the experience and knowledge any startup station needs. A strong operations organizer, Donna teaches basic show hosting to FCC filings, reports, and compliance. So both of these folks, I'm super excited to have them with us tonight who can go over the basics of what we're going to need to get a station started. I'm going to pass it over to Will and Donna. We're going to go through, I guess, some of the information we have in an equipment guide, what Will's going to talk about that he put together, and then move through all the pieces. Of course, you can ask questions at any time in the chat box that I'll kind of get together so that after the presentation we can go through people's questions about particular gear or about how they come together or that kind of thing. So I'll pass it over to Will.
All right. The first thing to check out is the document that's called Low Power FM Radio Equipment Guide, which you can find on the Prometheus Radio website. And you can see the prometheusradio.org/studio. The link is in there, and there's some more information about studio equipment. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the content that's in the equipment guide tonight, and in addition to some other things. But there's going to be more information in the equipment guide than we can possibly get to during this webinar. So I would highly recommend taking a look at that document just to get started. All right, so here's a pretty big little chart of all the components in a radio setup. This is from WRFU, low power station. And we're going to cover probably as much as we can and focus on the studio portion of the equipment rather than too much of the transmitter stuff. But obviously there are kind of two parts that make a whole. You need the studio section, with your mixer and your audio inputs like microphones and turntables and CD players and all that kind of stuff in order to feed your program, produce your program, and feed it to the transmitter and antenna. So that would be something to keep in mind. The other thing is that there are kind of two different audio setups that you might find at any given radio station. One is kind of a broadcast live studio that serves as kind of the epicenter of programming and usually directly feeds the transmitter line and is kind of the last stop for all audio before it goes onto the air. The other kind of studio that you might find in a radio station is a production studio, and that's going to have a lot of the same equipment as your main studio, but not a lot of the broadcast equipment. Now, the two different roles of those two different studios, a production studio is a place where folks who are working on pre-recorded radio shows or small spots, station IDs or underwriting kind of spots, public service announcements, or music, perhaps, recorded music. They're going to often work on that in a production studio with a computer and an editing software, possibly some inputs like a microphone that goes to a mixer and then goes into a computer. The thing that the production studio doesn't have are, first of all, it doesn't have a direct line often to the transmitter. So anything that you make in a production studio has to be, transferred to the broadcast studio in order to get it on the air. And it doesn't have things like an emergency alert system machine or controls for the transmitter, perhaps. So those are the kinds of things that the production studio does have the ability to produce pre-recorded material. Here is in a drawing of a studio, a broadcast studio. It's found in the equipment guide, and you can see in the center there's a seat for the host, and the host has a microphone in front of them and the main broadcast board. Often, especially in community radio stations nowadays, the host is also the engineer during the show. So the host is also the person raising the levels of the mics and making sure everyone can be heard, putting callers on the air, especially in the past, that might have been those functions might have been filled by two different people. Someone who's like an engineer who's running the board, and then someone who's the main host. But it works pretty well to have one person kind of running the show, hosting and dealing with the board, and then you can have guest speakers, as well as you'll see on the host's left some turntables and an equipment rack where there's likely CD players and the like, where the host can put on sounds and music during the show. And you also notice that setup is pretty important. You got the table where you can both run the board and put on music, as well as talk directly to guests. So that's pretty important. All right, Donna,
yes.
Do you have any thoughts or comments on that? And if not, maybe we can a little presentation.
Well, yes, I would like to add that when you're choosing your studio design, that U shape, one of the things you're going to want to be sure is that you have enough clearance down below, underneath, because that's generally where your transmitting equipment is going to be and your monitors will be. They're usually down below, out of sight, so people can't, fiddle with it or raise power or low power by accident. That would be the only thing I would add to this studio design. Hello?
Hi.
Okay.
Do you want to kind of go over some of the stuff that's in yours?
Yeah, I will have to do this manually because I am not actually in the
yeah, I can do the slides, Donna. I'll just...
Okay, so let's pull up the guide, the gear guide. I'm sorry, I can't see what you're putting up. But the second part of the slideshow that I have, that pretty much the second part of that slideshow would be based pretty much underneath, except for the, of course, the mast and the antennas going outside. But most of that equipment you want down below or up and out of the way. So it can't be handled unless it's handled with intent, I guess is the best way to put it. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, it looks like there aren't many questions there, so we can keep moving along. Did you want to look at talk about anything else that was a part of your slideshow, Donna, or?
Yeah, let me call up my slideshow real quick manually here.
Yeah, and of course, like I said earlier, folks can at any time just pop questions into the chat box, and I can either relay those to our speakers as we go, or again, keep them for the end when we'll have a little Q&A, sort of catch up for things that you missed or other questions that you have. And you can either send those, put them open on the chat box, or send them to us as the presenters, and then we can just take a look at them. And again, I just want to stress, and I'll put it in the box for folks, is that there is Prometheus does have a low power FM equipment guide, and that's a really helpful tool for kind of navigating all the pieces that you need, and taking a look at where you can get stuff like that, and names of equipment beyond just like a general idea, so that you have a good sense of what you'll need. And then I see that there is a question here about looking at streaming, and we are going to talk about that after we go a little bit further into some of the equipment stuff, and we'll actually do a little screen share so that we can show folks where the information is about that on the Prometheus website as well, and I think Donna can definitely speak to that, and of course Will as well. So we'll do some sharing people's experience with doing that at different stations. So Donna, are you? Yeah,
I am ready. If we can jump to the basic transmission system on that slideshow.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay.
So
that Sage Digital Index
is
something that you want to have set up in a rack, preferably as close to the board as possible, because sometimes you need to, all your DJs will need to be able to operate that, but not as on a regular momentarily basis. So you can either set that up high on a wall, mounted to a wall, or you can have it in a rack underneath that main studio, along with your voice processor, which is the next screen.
Yep.
Your voice processors, as well as the transmitter and the exciter can be done one of two ways. That can be separated out to a closet, depending on the environment that you're going to be setting up the station in. Either that can be put into a closet elsewhere, which is not a bad idea, because generally you don't want people to mess with the transmitter and the exciter. Usually that's a straight shot from the closet to the antenna and the mast that will run up the side of the building or out of the studio, and depending on how you plan on doing your broadcasting, whether it's going to be just a hardwired line all the way up on the side of a building, or if you're going to send that over a ISP, a studio transmitter link. All of those pieces of gear should be locked away somewhere.
And Donna, there was a question about if every studio needs an encoder-decoder. Maybe you want to cover that?
They are required to, low-power FM stations are required to only be able to retransmit, and they need to be able to monitor and retransmit any emergency codes. Now, the thing is that the investment that you're going to make in the decoder is almost comparable to an encoder-decoder. So you may want to shop around. While I was looking around today, I saw them being pretty much basically the same price. So it might be wise to take a look at the Sage and see if you can get a refurbished NDEC, as we call them. You might be able to get a refurbished at a much reasonable rate, and that will be just fine. That will keep you in compliance. No, you're not technically required to originate tests, but you should be able to monitor them and retransmit them if necessary.
So
that's part of this.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so Barry is asking about what the function of the encoder-decoder is, and that's your emergency alert system encoder and decoder. What that means is it's receiving emergency alert messages and then sending them back out. And like Donna was saying, low power FM, the FCC does not require you to encode and send out emergency alert messages And I think they did that because they were trying to reduce the burden on low power FM, but it doesn't seem as if low power FM specific, there's not many only decoder machines like Donna are not that much less money than the encoder decoder. So that's why that exists like that.
Exactly, and I highly recommend the Sages. They're easy to work with. Their support team is incredible. And like I said, you might be able to find refurbished Sage Index at a much more reasonable price than just a straight decoder.
Great. Barry, to answer maybe your earlier question about digital streaming, in this example that Donna has here, this chart, you can see that after the audio console goes to the signal processing equipment, it goes to the transmitter. If you're broadcasting online, at that point, it would also go to a computer or like a in-streamer, X-streamer, barracks box, or some sort of it's another kind of encoder to get it onto the web. That's usually standard. Have you seen it done other ways, Donna?
That is pretty much the standard that I've seen. There might be some other ways to do that, but that's pretty much the standard. That's the standard is that they put it upstream just before it goes out to the transmitter.
All right. Well, maybe since we're talking about it, we can move on to talk about internet streaming.
Okay.
And I will get to the internet streaming page, so give me just 1 second. All right. So here is the internet streaming page on prometheusradio.org. Great. So one of the good tools on this site, which you may not have heard about, is this Key to Internet Radio tool. So if you go to the What Do You Need for Internet Streaming page and go to the Key to Internet Radio or click on the image, you get to this page. This will help you figure out how to get started streaming your audio program. So I just went to the wizard, and then it asks you a series of questions in order to determine what kind of setup would best work for you in your situation. Here it asks me what sort of I know about. Here it asks me if I'm comfortable handling content licensing of our stream on our own, or if I need to pay someone else to handle this. Donna, do you want to talk about content licensing a little bit?
Right. Okay, so there is some content licensing that you'll have to be aware of, especially when you start out streaming, and the big one is the sound exchange. The beautiful part about hiring or becoming a member of certain groups and organizations that cover the sound exchange reporting for you is that generally your workload is much more limited. You don't have to worry about the monthly reporting that needs to be done. It will be done automatically through your content manager. Whatever program you're using to broadcast out over the air. Generally, we'll track all of that for you and then report it to the group to report to Sound Exchange. Doing it independently is you can do it, but the fees vary, and so you want to find groups where you can do a group buy of the licensing fees, and that way you can reduce it. I know the National Federation of Community Broadcasters, NFCB, has a great group buy on licensing. Their membership is pretty inexpensive, and it includes not only a licensing for the internet station, but pretty much terrestrial broadcasting topics are covered through their listservs as well as through their web pages. Some pretty important things that are needed at that point is getting that kind of coverage so you can start broadcasting at least on the internet right away. Any questions on that?
All right, so also we're on the next question here, which is the station going to be using a web server hosted off the premises? So often that'll be a host like StreamHost or, I don't know, Linode, I'm not sure what that is, or GoDaddy or something like that.
Right. Generally, when you're looking for building your web page, there are some combinations where you can get the streaming included in the web page, which is something that you'll want to work with. Either if you're using Mac equipment, then it'd be like Nicecast, Shoutcast. If you're using Linux, it'll be Internet DJ or multi-platform combination of equipment. You get into Mix, MIXXX, which is further down on that guide page.
Great, and I'm kind of just speeding through this wizard to see what the result looks like, because you can go through this wizard on your own to kind of have an idea of what works best for you.
Right. Now there are some free hosting services. If there's questions about, it is on the Prometheus page. There's giss.tv, freestreamhosting.org, and FM. And then for Spanish language programming, there is a website called Flujos, FLUJOS.org website. It's Spanish language streaming resources. That's a software program as well. So there's plenty of opportunities to begin this. And again, the internet streaming, my recommendation is that you begin that the day you're granted the construction permit and you've reserved your call letters. As soon as you've reserved your call letters, I would recommend start branding your web page and everything right then and there. If you're already beginning to stream now with the name of the project, you can keep that going. You can do it with the name of the radio project, but you cannot use call letters until they are secured and reserved and granted to you.
I think that's a great idea, and that definitely help you get started, so that when you're ready to go on the air, you're already running a tight ship.
Right. Well, and the beautiful part of it is that you get the opportunity to understand what broadcasting 24/7 is. You get to understand how your broadcast day is going to sound. You're going to learn about the multiple volunteers that will be coming in, approaching about doing radio shows, how to get them trained, how to get them organized in making sense of a show clock and everything else that needs to happen. So it's a real good opportunity it's almost like an instant gratification, basically. You've got this radio project, you've applied for the application, you've been granted the construction permit. Now you can go on the air, quote, quote, through the streaming and start raising money to get the equipment that you want and need. The transmitters are not cheap. The EAS systems are not cheap. So there's the avenue that you can start making revenue right away. You can keep tabs on the project through the day-to-day operation of the streaming station.
All right. I think maybe we should move on.
Okay.
So that's a bit about internet streaming. And again, you can find this tool, Key to Internet, on the internet streaming page at prometheusradio.org. And there's also some links there to the information that Donna was just talking about, different programs like Nicecast, Mix. And there's also some free hosting things. The next thing I think to talk about is how to actually go out and look at equipment and buy it. There's all different kinds of equipment, online retailers who specialize in different types of equipment. Here I'm looking at the equipment guide. This is the microphone section, and you can see all of these different kinds of microphones. There's the description and the price. So say if we took the one of these guys, and we're trying to, at the end of the equipment guide document, all the way at the end, there's a source page, and there's different kinds of retailers who specialize in different things, like I was saying. So the kind of studio equipment, audio type gear, there's these two sources. There's broadcast specialty folks like BW and Broadcast Depot, and you can find them at these locations. Then there's tower components and masts and things, and then kind of other kinds of specific broadcast type of things. there anything, Donna, that you've had experience with, any of these retailers? Or?
Oh, yes. Broadcast Supply Worldwide, based out of Tacoma, Washington, is probably one of the bigger supply organizations and companies in the nation. They are quick turnarounds. They have some great package deals. And the other part that I really like about BSW is that they also, not only do they sell the top of the line stuff, but they also have B stock, C stock, and refurbished stock. And so there's a way to get a better deal with if you have an engineer that you're working with who knows what equipment is needed. You can work with them through BSW. I love their combination packages. I just saw a microphone package that would be great for studios. It's like a 5-pack of microphones. It would be great for interviewing for like $100. So you can find some really good deals there. Also, the Broadcast Warehouse is a good one. They also have deals, and that's where you can look and find some real comparable equipment. Now, if you are doing this work on your own, there's some things that you really need to be mindful of, especially when it comes to your transmitters, is that they must be FCC certified. I was doing some research on some transmitters and found this one organization. I thought, wow, this is really good, too good to be true. And I had a few engineer buddies take a look at it. And their response was, don't touch it with a 10-foot pole because it's not FCC cleared. So when you get to that level of finding a transmitter, that's the biggest investment. The transmitter, your mast, and your antennas are going to be your biggest investment. And you want to have not only FCC approved, but equipment that's going to last you a while. So the people you want to look at there is like Broadcasters General, RF Special is a good place to take a look at transmitting equipment and gear.
Great. And here there are, this is a screenshot from the equipment guide. At the end there are, with different levels of equipment for your studio and for your transmitter equipment. So here this is a setup, it's labeled moderate setup, because if you were a commercial radio station or a NPR station or something with a big budget, you'd probably spend a few times this amount for your studio. But this is, in the equipment guide, this is like the high end. So this has examples of all of the things you might want to put in your studio, and it comes out to around $15,000. The minimal setup comes to about $5,000, and this is if you're getting B stock and C stock, like Donna was saying, or if you are getting donations of old computers and use FM tuner and speakers. You can really get the price down and to a third of the one we just saw. And the same goes for transmission equipment. This here is the more decked out version of the transmitter equipment, and it includes a transmitter that's web connected, so you can access its controls anywhere. A high-end audio processor, so that your broadcast sounds consistent and you're within legal modulation limits. And a two-bay antenna, which is an antenna that gives you more gain so you can turn down your power and have the same coverage area. And then the minimal setup is about half of that. So you're using a much cheaper audio processor that's a compressor with a peak limiter that keeps your transmission legal, but it might not sound quite as smooth and nice as the high-end processor. Same thing for a transmitter and a one-bay antenna and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a moment at this time just to make it clear that all of this is can be bought in parts. That's the other thing. It was that $14,000 price tag. You will have 18 months to raise that kind of money, and technically, what you want from the day of the grant of the construction permit, you want to have about half of that year all ready to go so you can start streaming. So between now and the award, you're going to want to start asking your 10 favorite friends to contribute about $100, $200 a piece, whatever they can, so you can at least begin acquiring the basic studio equipment with a web streaming capability. And then as soon as that construction permit is granted, that's when you can, fire up the radio project and really start raising the remaining $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 that you might need in order to acquire the transmitter, the exciters, the antennas, the masts, get the finances together for renting a transmitter space or tower site, or the expenses of building your own tower site. So I just want to take the sticker shock out because people are like, oh my gosh, you do have time to raise that funding.
All right, well, I think maybe this would be a good time for questions, unless there's anything else, Donna, that you want to cover before we go there?
No, I think that's a good point. We should go to questions.
Great. Yeah, so folks, again, just to remind people that you can use the chat box to send us a couple questions. We'll see what we can do. One question I'm going to open up with, just because there's none in there, is related, but is about portable equipment, if you guys can speak to that quickly, I guess. I know that that opens kind of a whole other can of worms in some ways, but a big piece of the station that I worked at was being able to go out and collect interviews or field recordings for production pieces back in the studio, and I'm just wondering if both of you maybe want to talk about your favorite, both maybe microphones and recording devices for being out in the field. Donna, you feel free to go first.
Go ahead, Will.
All right. One version is the Zoom line of portable recorders, and they have several different levels. But that's a popular one. The Zoom H2 is a pretty popular, low-cost, and pretty high-functioning portable recorder. It has a different mic. It has 4 different mics in it that can be set up in different ways to capture audio. And its functions are very high, like a high level of functionality. It feels a little bit cheap, and I think where they kind of get the price down is the enclosure and whatnot. It's made out of like plastic, but you can get a case for it, and it works really well. Yeah, there's some other ones that I'm blanking on right now that I like a lot that are a little higher end. But yeah, the Zoom line, which is it's a subsidiary of Samsung, is one that I've used and liked.
I like the Tascam has another nice handheld recorder that comes with a bidirectional microphone pickup system that keeps everything digitally stored, which makes it very easy for you to walk in to even your own computer at home to edit if you have the right gear. But let me see, I'm looking it up right now. That works very well.
Another. Hello?
Go ahead.
Another one that works pretty well is the Marantz. I think it's like PMD line or PM or something. That's a little bit more high quality one that has been pretty popular in the past with radio interviews. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, so there's a question from Barry about studio transmitter links via telco phone line. And the thing that I would say to that is the kind of old school landline studio transmitter links are kind of out of favor. They're expensive and not very high quality. And in fact, most kind of especially LPFMs that go on the air and you know, and even FM translators and smaller FM stations often use wireless technology, specifically in the unlicensed band. You know, the kind of what is the Wi-Fi band of studio transmitter links, and so yeah, that's they all will require some sort of codecs to take them from audio into a digital format and then back to audio at the transmitter site. That it helps maintain the integrity of the signal, since it's a lot easier to reduce noise in a digital signal than it is an audio signal. Do you have any thoughts about that, Donna?
Yeah, it is definitely becoming a smarter way to do it, and much less expensive. I'm sitting here looking at an STL package with a 10-watt transmitter, and they want $3,000 for it. So what you want to look for is something along the line of an ISP, over the internet connection, STL. Usually that's done with a shot from your studio to your transmitter, and that's usually done by a line of sight, and it can be done by microwave, it can be done by Wi-Fi, but again, it depends on a case-by-case basis. If it's right off your building, you just hardwire right out, and you don't need an STL at that point.
Thank you. So we're just at 7, so we're going to take 2 more questions that we have here. The first one I notice is about remote broadcasting. If you folks want to answer some questions about the equipment that you need for remote broadcasting, and then we'll take one more after that I see here.
What do you mean by remote broadcasting?
I assume that the question means if you're doing like a remote broadcast, you know, somewhere in, say, around in town around the radio station, and you're trying to beam back sound, you broadcast from a remote to the station back onto the air. I think it's not so hard to. There are applications that you can use, and you can actually use the same kind of web streaming programs if you're connected to the internet at a location to stream audio back to your main studio. There's also you can also get analog equipment that you get a separate license from the FCC that is on either microwave or some higher frequency band that are for remote broadcasts.
Right. Now, there's also in remote broadcast is the other part of the controlling of the signal, which is generally in your software, depending on the type of transmitter that you have. So your chief engineer would be able to remain in touch 24/7 with the transmitter, and if anything should go wrong, they'd be able to fix it from their phone, while they're anywhere in the world, basically. So that's a two-pronged thing when you say remote broadcast.
Indeed. This other question I wanted to answer was the one about the transmitter exciter being kept in the studio or the transmitter location. So yeah. I was just going to say that the transmitter exciter is actually also the transmitter, and especially in low power situations, the transmitter exciter usually is the thing that takes this audio and turns it into an FM signal. And then often for higher power situations, that signal after the exciter will be put into another transmitter that just amplifies that signal. So the kind of transmitter that you're likely to use, unless it's a really old one, for LPFM, is to be a transmission exciter, the transmitter, an exciter and the transmitter all in one, because that tends to be the way it's done.
Right. And there's XT30, which is a 30-watt FM exciter and transmitter that you can have tuned. Again, this takes a few weeks. Your transmitters, when you order your transmitters, it's going to take a couple weeks for it to come in because it needs to be tuned and tested before they ship it out. And then once it gets to your project and gets set up, it also needs to be tuned and tested. Well, not tuned, but tested yet again when it's mounted. That's where you get your proof of performance to ensure that everything is operating within the legal limits that was granted to your station.
Great. Thanks, Donna. So, folks, we're going to just wrap it up here since we're past 7 o'clock now, but 7 o'clock where we are, 7 o'clock Eastern time, I should say. I know some of you are joining us from places where it is not currently 7 o'clock, but since we're past the hour here. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. So much thanks to Donna and Will for their expertise. It's been great to hear really clear, point by point, going through all the pieces that we'll need. Reminder, of course, that these documents are available on the Prometheus site, so both the low-power equipment guide to look at, and that includes those budgets that you saw Will bring up, and then all of the information about internet streaming is also on the site, so you can just go to the Prometheus site, use that as a resource to connect to those things. You can also always get in touch with applicant support about your applications in general. That's support@prometheusradio.org. And also when I post this webinar, the recording of it, we can also put those resources up there so they're easy to find, just linked up with the webinar if that's how you found them. Thanks again. Donna, if you have any closing remarks, feel free, or we can just close up the webinar for the evening.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the webinar, and if I can be of any help, please do not hesitate to contact me at communityradiogoddess@yahoo.com.
Great. Very fitting. We need more. This is what we're going to need to get a lot of stations. No, we can use all people power, but of course, the Community Radio Goddess definitely would help us get a station going. And I'll just put that email in the chat box so that people can get a hold of that. So, Will, do you have closing remarks or any way people can get a hold of you? Or I told folks to get to check out just support at prometheusradio.org. Do you have any closing remarks you want to give people?
Just thanks for attending, and yeah, I'm available for you can call Prometheus or email us, and you can ask for me, and I'll help you out.
Awesome. So thanks again to our presenters. That was great. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight, and of course, keep an eye on the upcoming webinars at prometheusradio.org/webinars, and I hope everyone has a great evening. Thanks a lot. Take care.